All right, so when you think of romantic art, what usually comes to mind? Probably pure, wild emotion, right? But what if I told you that some of the most stunning, breathtaking landscapes from that era were painted not just with passion, but with a whole lot of scientific precision? Today, we're going to dig into how German romantics actually used science to capture the very soul of nature.
Just look at this. This is Caspar David Friedrich's Der Watzmann, and it's got it all. I mean, it's the textbook definition of Romanticism. You've got the huge, almost terrifying power of the mountain, that feeling of the sublime, and this idea that some lone figure is witnessing something totally divine. It just feels like raw emotion, slapped right onto the canvas.
But here's a wild idea. What if the key to getting this kind of emotional punch wasn't about throwing logic and reason out the window? What if, instead, it was about diving headfirst into it? What if the real secret to painting something so sublime was, believe it or not, a system?
To get this, we've got to look up. For centuries, painters really struggled with the sky. I mean, think about it. How on earth do you paint something that's always moving, something as shapeless as a cloud? The Romantics were completely obsessed with this challenge, but they were missing something. They needed a new tool.
And that tool came from the last place you'd expect. Meet Luke Howard. And no, he was not an artist. He was a pharmacist in London who just happened to be a super passionate amateur meteorologist. He was a man of science through and through, obsessed with observing and classifying things. So in 1803, Howard does something that is, honestly, revolutionary. In this essay, he comes up with a system for naming all those shapeless forms in the sky. He used Latin, which was the universal language of science, and he basically gave the sky its own vocabulary.
For instance, you know those big, puffy, cotton ball clouds? He coined the term cumulus, from the Latin word for heap. And just like that, that cloud wasn't just a puff of vapor anymore. It had a name, a definition, a set of characteristics. He did it for stratus, cirrus, all of them. He literally defined the undefined.
And you can see the connection right here, plain as day. On one side, you have Howard's precise scientific watercolor, and on the other, a cloud study by the Romantic painter Johann Christian Dahl. The influence is just, wow, it's undeniable. Howard's system didn't kill the mystery of the sky. It gave artists a language to study it, to understand it, and to paint it with this incredible new realism and drama.
And believe me, this wasn't some dusty, forgotten scientific paper. This was a huge deal. The great writer and thinker Johann Wolfgang von Goethe was so blown away that he wrote a whole bunch of poems to honor Howard. Think about that. Science had just handed art a brand new pair of glasses for looking at the heavens. Okay, so this scientific approach wasn't just for the sky. Nope. It also totally transformed another huge piece of the puzzle for painters, color. And just like with the clouds, the Romantics were right in the middle of these big scientific debates about what light and color even were.
You basically had two competing theories. On one side, you had Isaac Newton's take, all physics and math, light being split by a prism. But then you had Goethe, who argued that color was also about how we experience it. It's psychological, it's emotional. So which theory do you think the artist latched onto? Yeah, exactly.
This whole debate inspired the painter Philipp Otto Runge to create this incredible thing, the Farbenkugel, or the color sphere, back in 1810. This was a first. No one had ever tried to map out all the colors in a three-dimensional model before. You've got pure white at the top pole, pure black at the bottom, and all the pure colors running around the equator. It was basically a GPS for the world of color.
And Runge didn't just theorize, he put it straight onto the canvas. In a painting like this one, every single color choice is deliberate, based on his systematic map of color relationships. The goal wasn't to make his art cold and technical, not at all. He used his scientific sphere to dial in the exact feeling he wanted, that sense of dawn, of renewal, of divinity.
So, okay, we've got clouds getting classified, colors getting mapped out, but this was all part of a much, much bigger shift in thinking. It was this idea of seeing the entire world as a kind of laboratory, a place for hands-on empirical study.
And this is where something called plein air painting really takes off. And all that means is getting out of the studio. You go outside, into nature, and you try to capture what you actually see, the real light, the real atmosphere, the geology. It was basically science fieldwork, but with a paintbrush.
I mean, check out this sketch of the main man himself, Caspar David Friedrich, hiking with his sketchbook and all his tools. This just shatters that old image of the tortured artist waiting for inspiration in some dusty attic, right? This guy is a researcher,
a dedicated observer, out there collecting data straight from the source.
And once you start looking for it, you see this dedication everywhere. In Carl Friedrich Schinkel's work, you can almost feel that specific quality of the evening light. The mountains look right because he actually looked at them for hours. This is the payoff you get from direct, patient observation.
And it wasn't just about pure nature either. It even extended to the man-made. Look at this painting by Karl Blechen of a bridge being built. He's fascinated by the raw geology of the gorge, the physics of the construction, the sheer power of nature being wrestled with by engineering. This isn't some idealized fairy tale landscape. It's a document of the rugged, real world.
So where does this all leave us? What does it all add up to? Well, it points to a totally new way of thinking, a new way of seeing the world, where art and science weren't enemies at all. They were essential partners. And look, the ultimate goal for these artists was never just to copy nature like a photograph. No way. The goal was a synthesis. It was to bring two things together. They used objective, scientific tools to see the world more clearly, which then let them express their own subjective, emotional response to it that much more powerfully.
So, German Romanticism, it turns out, isn't some big rebellion against the Enlightenment and all its science. It's a powerful fusion. It's scientific rigor plus emotional depth. It's objective observation fueling subjective experience. They learned to name the clouds so they could better paint their soul, and they mapped out color to unlock its true emotional meaning. That's the key.
What's so cool about this is it shows us that a deeper knowledge of how the world works doesn't have to get rid of the magic. It can actually amplify it. Which kind of leaves us with a question for today, doesn't it? Where else do we see art and science coming together to create new, more powerful ways of understanding our world?